Welcome back to the series where we explore Relativity Short Message File format. We're gonna go right to the screen because we have lots of stuff to talk about and very little time. First, a little bug. This encoding here did not work. Works now. Done, solved, no problem. Next, a feature where you can unselect certain fields by clicking on the header. So it is kind of tricky. It doesn't say that it does it, but that's how you can unselect. I did add more fields to my AI, what do you call it, figuring system that figures out what the fields are and maps it to the right field. So I added more fields to my if-then conditional list. So now it'll detect more fields and map them accordingly. But if you don't like it, for example, you don't want attachments, you can unselect them just like that. What else? Next feature, you can select certain rows, check them here, and export, and then only these rows will be exported. Next, body could be a path field. So if you have a field like an extracted text, you could specify that, check field as a path, and it'll go to the file, read it from there, and use that as a body. Obviously, you want to make sure it's populated. Only relative paths are supported, so the path should start from the folder where that file is. All right. Absolute paths are not supported. Next, quickly jumping back to export selected rows. If you don't have any rows selected, do not check this option. You're going to get some weird results. In fact, it'll just export the first document and that's it. Don't know why it does it, doesn't matter. If you don't have rows selected, don't select the button to export selected rows. Pretty simple. Next, I redid how EML files are being generated. And the way I put it here is we have two options, RSMF export logic 1 and 2. So 1 is what it was in the previous version. And the way I generate our EML, and the previous EML is the wrapper for the message itself. So the way I generate our EML is by writing one line at a time and basically manually generating the file. And export logic 2 is I'm using an API called MapyKit or something like that, where I generate a proper .NET object. I add different properties to it and then tell it to save to file. So that's what Relativity says I should do. It's a better way of doing it. However, it has a couple of issues. And if you look at some of these email addresses, they aren't always proper email addresses. You have names and you have phone numbers. And when you use like a MapyKit, it wants you to give it like a proper name and an email address. And if one of them fail its own validation, it's not going to create it properly. So that was a bit of an issue. Oops, actually there was one. So see right here where it's just a phone number. And here it needs to be, right? So the phone number would be like an email and this is a name. So I have to put some logic to accommodate that. And that's what I'm doing with export logic 2. So let me show you how it looks. So on my right, so over here, you see how I would just, this is logic 1. So I would just write it out as it appears. But on the left here, when I add name and the email address is now empty, so it puts like an empty brackets. It looks fine when you open EML file. I don't see any issues. I'll just work on it. I'll work on better parsing name and email and separate them. Maybe I'll do like a check. If there is an @ symbol, it'll go into email. If there isn't, the whole thing will go into name. So I'll play around with this some more and try it on different types of data. One other thing I wanted to mention as far as what fields are supported here. There's certain fields that are not supported by my application. For example, like participants' custom metadata fields or custom metadata for conversation. The reason why I didn't do it is I don't see a practical way of somebody supplying that information in a DAT file. So it's not there for now. I think that functionality would be better reserved for exports from maybe like an XML file formats where that information is stored. And if somebody has a need for that, show me what kind of DAT files you have, what application you export from, and I can easily add that later. But right now they're going to be custom metadata fields that will not be supported, so such as this and participant, and there's also no support for reactions and edits. All right, so that might be coming later, but right now the application doesn't do it. And like I said, the reason is there's just no DAT files that I've seen that provide you that information, so it doesn't make sense for me to work on implementing the functionality when no one's going to use it. And finally, what you all been waiting for, I did contact Relativity and I asked them, why do I not see information about conversation and the message? I don't see extended metadata when I mouse over certain message like it says in the instructions. So they said the viewer that's in a developer environment is different from Relativity 1. So I said, I don't believe you, show me. So they gave me access to Relativity 1. I was able to log in and test it out for myself. I'm going to show you some screenshots that I took. The first one, let me open this up here. So this is where I mouse over conversation and it tells me the start date, the end date, how many messages, and the platform type. And you see this is the same data we've been working with before. You know, I didn't Photoshop anything. And here I hovered over this question mark over a message and it told me all the metadata fields, all the custom metadata fields that I stored in there. And lastly, I have a zoomed out view, and here we see our participants on top and our timeline on the bottom. So all those things are there in the viewer. I'm not really sure why it's showing up on one viewer but not there. I don't know what the technical differences are, but if it's in Relativity 1, that's where it's going to get used. That's really all that matters. Yep, so that is update for the latest version. Finally, I want to say thank you for those who test this with me. It's huge help and I got a lot of feedback. If you want to join in, please send me an email, whatever. I'll get you a copy and we can play together. All right, see you guys in the next update. Okay, we're in Relativity 1. I'm going to click on the text message over here, number 8. And here we'll see our communications. And if I mouse over our conversation, you could see the dates. If I hover our question mark, you see other extended metadata that we saved. And if I scroll down, you could see that we have animated GIFs that actually play in the message. And on the bottom, we have a timeline, so we could jump to different parts of conversation. So it does work in Relativity 1.